if we look at the WEF's Global Competitiveness Report, Ireland ranked in 29th position out of 142 economies, same as the year before. But in 2009, Ireland ranked in 25th position, and in 2008, 22nd position. So a very similar decline to that seen in the IMD ranking. And then lastly, in the third analysis, the World Bank Ease of Doing Business report in 2012, Ireland has one of its most outstanding ranking positions in 10th place out of 183 countries, although falling 2 places since last year. Ireland is especially well ranked for the low number of procedures necessary to start a new business, for the protection that it offers investors, the ease of exporting, and obviously the low corporate tax rate. But apart from these advantages, there might be some surprises that I still have in store for you. Did you know, I believe somebody already mentioned it today, Peter, was that Ireland was ranked #1 for the availability of skilled labor. This is something that the country should be very, very proud of. But also first for a lack of discrimination towards foreign investors, first for investment incentives, and for a competitive corporate tax rate. But the country is also ranked first for understanding the need for economic and social reform. Second, ranking for a lack of protectionism and for the ease of immigration, as well as ranking in 3rd position for the number of patents in force. I believe that these rankings are a strong testament to Ireland's values of education, skills, and openness. Especially interesting is the high ranking for understanding the need for economic and social reform. This indicates a very strong capacity of the Irish to adapt to difficult times and to austerity. As we're seeing now in some of the other crisis-hit countries, this capacity to adapt is often lacking. So now that we've seen some of Ireland's strengths and competitive advantages, what are the pressure points that need to be addressed? First, stability. And I don't think this will be a surprise for any of you. Stabilizing, obviously, the banking system and the public finances, but especially reducing any volatility and uncertainty, and most importantly, reducing the high level of unemployment. Talking to investors around the world and the advantages of different locations for investment, one striking feature always comes up in the discussion, and that is if there's anything that investors hate more, it's uncertainty and unpredictability. So stability is definitely important as the rules of the game need to be well understood by future investors. Second, a continued focus, and I emphasize continued because Ireland has made a lot of progress already in research and development, but more can be done to boost research and development expenditure, supporting the transfer of knowledge between academic and research institutions and the private sector, but especially the dissemination of this knowledge into innovative goods and services that can be commercialized in the market. And the third bottleneck for sustaining competitiveness is infrastructure. Not only continued investment in basic physical infrastructure, because Ireland has made quite a bit of progress in this area, but also in addressing the constraints in the financial system, improving access to credit, venture capital for startups and small and medium-sized enterprises, and supporting entrepreneurship. Ireland also has a very strong advantage in a culture that cultivates entrepreneurship. And this needs to be also supported by different advantages in their establishment of their startups, but also in the continuation to growing into larger companies. And lastly, continued support of social infrastructure. This means education, healthcare, pensions, and aiming to diminish and close the gap between any urban and rural inequities, so that the benefits of any future growth is going to be shared more equitably across the population. This might sound like a very challenging list, but if I want to bring the discussion now to the relevance of my research on sustainable competitiveness, based on the empirical research that I undertook for this analysis, I was able to come up with 6 factors that simplified the model for sustainable competitiveness. And these 6 factors are macroeconomic stability, openness, institutions and the rule of law, a strong legal framework, infrastructure comprising basic, financial, and social infrastructure, culture, both national and corporate, and lastly, technology and innovation. Well, as you see that from the ticks that I've made on these 6 factors, Ireland has successfully integrated 3 of these factors into its competitiveness strategy. Ireland's strong reputation as an open, pro-business economy, a very strong institutional framework, and a competitive and entrepreneurial culture and strong value system. These provide a very strong platform from which to build. Obviously, more needs to be done to improve macroeconomic stability and infrastructure, and I leave a slight question mark for innovation and technology. Well, in my research, I found that technology and innovation were actually the tipping points that move nations forward and provide the means for companies to move up the value chain by boosting their productivity. Ireland, although a highly attractive environment for FDI in terms of its knowledge-based resources, could still boost its potential for sustainable competitiveness by strengthening the linkages between the foreign affiliates and its indigenous companies in terms of knowledge transfer, in terms of skills and training, and in terms of international best practices and technological cooperation. Ireland has a very strong economy of globality, but it's necessary also to boost the potential of the domestic companies, especially the downstream and upstream activities that are in the supply chain of the foreign affiliates and the multinationals. So this means growth in the form of sustainable initiatives. Ireland really needs to advance on a path of sustainable competitiveness. The country will need growth for this. Too much austerity and short-term budget cuts could leave Ireland, but also Spain and Italy, from looking like this. We don't want to follow the collapsing of the sustainable temple that we're seeing actually happening in Greece, potentially followed by Spain and Italy. We don't want to be found in a similar situation. So consequently, the name of the game today is what I call the triple A's. First, austerity, but with a growth compact. Any actions to support economic growth need to focus on growth-enhancing structural reforms and boosting competitiveness. Cuts can only achieve so much in isolation, and they need to be married to a growth agenda in order for delivering sustained and structural change. Second, adapting the mindset. We're living in times of unprecedented global uncertainty. It's no longer enough to just reap the benefits of past success. Don't get complacent, either about improvements in the cost of doing business in Ireland or ability to attract US investment. Past competitiveness is no guarantee of future competitiveness. Lastly, advance in times of adversity, or as President Obama would say, forward. Let's embrace his campaign slogan and invest in the future. Crises and opportunity are in fact the same word in Chinese. So let's take this crisis to implement the necessary long-term measures for sustainable competitiveness. And as Peter mentioned, this necessity to continue to invest in talent and the human resources, I believe, is so vital. I'd like to make a parallel to Switzerland, where we are both, in fact, islands. Ireland is surrounded by water, but Switzerland is an island within the European Union. We don't have any natural resources. The only resources that we have are our people. And therefore, it's a great necessity to continue to invest in the talent, retain the talent within the country, and to attract talents, of course, into the country as well. We can only depend on that resource, and that is our people. We need to nurture that resource and invest in the future of our country. I'd like to leave you with a quote from President Ronald Reagan, who said, in life, there are 3 kinds of people. Those who make it happen, those who let it happen, and those who wonder, well, what happened? The Irish are known for their high capacity to rebound in times of trouble, So I'd like to think that we are among those who can make things happen by taking the bold steps necessary to improve and sustain the competitiveness of the country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.